Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a preview to this week's episode of the Market Monday, which I'm going to try to put some nice editing into, but this is just going to be one of my rambly point and shoot type videos talking about the topic of competitive versus casual, or better yet, competitive versus commander finance. As many of you may know, I started this channel many moons ago. A few years back, I really focused on Modern as my go-to format to invest in cards, especially cards that were currently in Standard that had a lot of relevance in the Modern format. And then we had kind of the 2016 crash where prices across the board pretty much fell from Modern and most competitive formats. And also we've come to a new age in the Standard format where everything is just really overprinted. And for reference, just go check the prices of Kaladesh. Even cards that have been historically 4-ofs in the most popular deck are under $1. When a card like Scrap Heap Scrounger cannot hit over $2, we know we have a problem with the Standard format as far as finance goes. And I really think it's the Standard Showdown packs and a lot of this other supplemental product is actually having a lot more effect on rares in Standard than we've ever seen before. Of course, the invocations hold a lot of, or I guess masterpiece invocations, whatever the chase cards of those sets, hold a lot of the set value. As you can see at the site, I'll show you a site really quick called Dawn Glare. Good resource for the price, overall price of a set. So if you come over here and you look at the price list, set value, you go more in set value here. It shows you based upon either TCG mid or you can change this to TCG low to see how much the average price of a box is going to be. So basically you can see that it does include like with or without expeditions. So with Battle for Zendikar, the box value is worth about $30 unless you take into account the chance of getting an expedition. And then it jumps drastically up to $51. So expeditions themselves are holding 21, almost 40% of the value of the box. And you can see that that's kind of the same, a little bit lower for like Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, but there still is quite a bit of spread. $16 is what your average invocation is going to give you per booster box. So basically, it's really awkward to be investing in Standard. There's just so much supply when it comes to rares and uncommons and even mythics that playable cards in Modern or even in Standard, like mythic and rare cards, have a very tough time of holding their value. So what I'm going to try to portray in this video or explain in this video is where I think that I need to get past my obsession with competitive and start to really experiment with the casual formats, especially Commander. And that's going back to this EDHRec, where I think the EDHRec is a gold mine because for once, NTG Top 8 is okay, but it's more competitive Commander. EDHRec is the casual of all casual sites for Commander. In fact, a lot of Commander players are blaming EDHRec for like ruining the Commander format because it leads to net decking in Commander. But it's just a huge resource of cards that people actually play with in the overall scope of Commander, not just in your local play group, not just in my local play group, but just in the whole worldwide broad scope of Commander. And I'm going to show you that these cards are outperforming their competitive counterparts when we look at sets, especially Theros and the Khans of Tarkir blocks. As you can see that the casual cards have, with the exception of a few cards like Kolgan's Command, I would say, or if you go into even Standard right now, cards like Collective Brutality, when they do hit a #1 Modern deck, they can definitely hold their price tag and go up in value. But other than that, if you're just looking at just sheer numbers of cards, the casual or the Commander cards are definitely the route to go for safe increases. So if you come over here to cards and you go top cards, it will start to show you the top cards of played in the Commander format. And this can be a little bit misleading because some of these will be like, it's in 33% of this deck. Say like Supreme Verdict is only in white and blue decks. So there'll be a less number of these than Lightning Greaves, for example. So Supreme Verdict will have over almost 12,000 copies played. The Lightning Greaves will have a 49,000 copies played in all of the everyone that's ever submitted a deck to whatever EDHRec pulls from it. I know it pulls from Tapped Out. I'm not sure if it pulls from any of the other sources, but those are Tapped Out. Is a huge source for a lot of casual players. Use it just to store deck lists and put their own deck lists and try to talk to people about their specific deck lists. And Commander is their #1 format of decks that are submitted there. So anywho, we're just going to look at this, and I'm going to try to show you the cards out of their respected sets have outperformed the more competitive cards. And I really want to focus on a card called Dictate of Erebos. Dictate of Erebos sees a copy of, it's in 60% of all black decks, which means that it has over 13,000 decks registered have registered a Dictate of Erebos. So let's go back over to, we're gonna head back over to MTG Goldfish and start looking at the prices of these particular cards. So let's go here and look at Dictate of Erebos. And this is Journey into Nyx, and there's a card that's very, very similar to Dictate of Erebos, which we're gonna compare and contrast this with. So you can see that at one point this was an 80-cent card, a 50-cent card after its height of right when it stopped being drafted. This is usually when these are the lowest, and so this is another relevant topic for Market Mondays. I've talked about this in the past about how Kaladesh is going to hit this point pretty soon to where it will be the low of the low, and that's when you'll start investing in Kaladesh. I don't think we're quite there, but that's another topic for another day. So you can see that it hit 50 cents because it didn't see any standard play. Whereas there was another card here which hit Modern by storm called the Eidolon of Great Revels, which also had a very big increase. At one point it was $2 and then went up to 11. But you can see how sporadic. This is the great crash of 2016 for Modern. You can see boom right here. Yes, Burn did fall out of favor a little bit in 2016 and now is back on the rise. But you can see this will probably price correct from here because there is a buyout here from here to here. And this will probably price correct, I would say, at around $9 by the time this flattens out. A good way to check is to see on TCG Player, $8. Yeah, that's probably more the true value. Mid is around 9 once this starts to adjust. So anyway, this is typical of Modern. These big swings, these valleys and mountains, depending on what is the flavor of the week on the decks. Now, what's cool about Modern is you can get Eidolon's going to for here to stay. It's proven itself. So you can get in on these valleys and then sell on the mountains and rinse and repeat a billion times with Modern. It's so chaotic with Modern. But as an investor standpoint, you really have to be on top of things. Yes, Modern does allow for price to increase quicker than Commander, but Commander overall, I believe, is the safer route. Now we go back to the Dictate of Erebos. You can see there is no valleys and mountains. There's a little bit of price correction here when there was a buyout right here because it very end of well, this was in standard. This card did see some play in some I can't remember what decks. It was some sort of Siege Rhino based deck. Here it is right here. There was a Siege Rhino based deck started putting Dictate of Erebos. I think it was really good against the kind of mirror matchups or some of these other very low creature based decks like the Dragon Lord Ojutide type decks, I believe is why they started putting it in. But anyway, that was the little bit of price increase there at the very end of standard. And then after it rotated, it went back down to about $1.50 and now has tripled in price since then. So Dictate of Erebos is a really good card in Commander because it has the Grave Pact type ability, is a little bit easier on the wallet as well as on the mana cost for 4-color decks to splash it in. Usually mana is not the biggest problem in Commander because Commander sources of mana can be incredibly greedy. So this is like the type of card from here on forward that you need to identify from sets. And I think that, man, this is about the time where I said we should start looking at Theros and Concept Arc here, but in all honesty, we might be too late for Commander. Now, one little other thing of hesitation and while investing in this strategy is you can see a lot of these, you'll start to see a lot of these symbols right here. Let's go back to the top cards played. So you'll start seeing a ton of these cards have these commander symbols in them, or eternal master symbols. That's because it seems to me that Wizards is very much aware of the commander format and reprints the cards that do see a lot of play in commander. So that is that little bit of warning that these cards are on the short list to be reprinted in all of the supplemental commander products. You can see all of these have been, every one of them have been reprinted very recently here. So even on the next row, yep, there isn't anything still from its original set except for Supreme Verdict, which is kind of crazy that wasn't included in the Modern Masters. That was a spec I was always going to buy into, but I'm kicking myself sometimes for that. So anyway, tomorrow we're really going to focus on cards that are rotating, specific cards. I've already started to sink a lot of money into one particular card. I'm not going to spoil it for tomorrow, but you can see, here's a little spoiler too about, look at Anguish Unmaking. Anguish Unmaking is a great, here's another one. So comparing the Dictative Erebos to the Eidolon, you can see this has a nice trajectory, whereas Eidolon's all over the place. Look at Anguish Unmaking. This card has very little play in Standard, just because Black-White hasn't been, like Marty Vehicles has put it in the past, but they already have better removal spells. And so Anguish Unmaking does see very seldom modern either. These are kind of if you click on one of these, I'll actually be very surprised to actually have one of copy in the Marty Vehicles, and then we'll click over here to like this Counters company, and I highly doubt there will be even one. Yep, it's been on a list at one point in time somewhere down the road. Same thing with this smallpox, this white-black smallpox deck. You might see like a one of Anguish Unmaking. So that's not enough to really strip the supply. It's all about Commander, which has been making this card go up since its its bottom here at $1.50. And I'm sure after a while it's going to follow that same trajectory as the Dictative Erebos and other cards. And you compare it to everything else in Shadows or Innistrad, where across the board the set has been on the decline. Like it just decline. I mean, what is a really, really, really heavily played card? Tireless Tracker, of course, is a very, very heavily played card, and it is going to start seeing a decline now as it starts to rotate. So I mean, right there, if you could theoretically just get out of Tireless Trackers and into Anguish Unmaking, that would be the right way to go. Let's look at this compared to Declaration of Stone, something that's seen a ton of Standard play, and it started off the gates huge and is now way less, or actually about the same price as Anguish Unmaking. So they're right with each other in that. Yeah, so that is just so telling to me of what is the healthy overall long-term investment. Look at this card too. It is called Dragon Tempest. Dragon Tempest saw very little Standard play, if any, and look at how this card has just been going up. There's a lot of kind of cool infinite combos you can do with this card. I know that it did see a lot of decks in Brea. Brea kind of adopted the Dragon Tempest, even though it didn't use dragons at all, because this is whenever a creature flying enters a battlefield, it gains haste, and therefore you could have those Thopters then do something like like any sort of tap type ability. I've seen it in decks like that, but also I think that people are starting to buy in this card in anticipation for the Dragon deck coming out in August. We're actually going to start seeing a lot of Commander spoilers because, again, the Commander set is coming out early this year, 2 months early. Instead of November, it's coming out in August. So, yeah, be really looking forward to those spoilers, and any card that is not included in those decks will have a huge price increase with the following months afterwards. So, compare this with Dragons of Tarkir. We've seen Kolaghan's Command, of course, go up, and Collected Company go up because they were modern staples. The problem with these is they never really were extremely low. Kolaghan's Command was one of my best specs. Maybe I need to sell out of this card because I got in at 5. Once again, a very good, I always pump this up on these market-related videos, but that's one of the perks of being part of my Patreon is I will tweet out on Patreon what cards I'm investing in, and I told some to get in at $5, and this was a quick triple up. I got in because of Frontier, and then of course it just hits in Death Shadow, and that was I invested in cards that were good in Frontier and also did see Modern play. So anyway, Kolaghan's Command did go up from 5 to 15, so it had a triple up. But Dragon Tempest also, if you sink as much money in that, or look like Sidisi Undead Vizier, this card has gone up over time because of Commander. It was rotated here, I do believe. What did it rotate right here? So it went back. I don't know. Maybe this did it see any play in Standard? I can't remember if it did or not. I don't think it did. But this is all casual demand that has been really increasing up the Sidisi. But I mean, you can see like other cards that do see a lot of play in Modern. For example, the Targus Command has pretty much flatlined out for a while. You know, it was really heavily played in Standard, rotated out, and went from at its rotation, it went down to $5, and it hit 8 because burn is starting to go up. But still, it's such a volatile card. Whereas the Commander cards have just had that nice rise since their rotation. So anyway, that's going to be the entire topic from tomorrow. I'm going to be looking at cards from the rotating sets, meaning Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon, Battle for Zendikar, and Oath of the Gatewatch. And there is a insanely good spec, which I've personally already increased the price of it by 10 cents, just with my own particular relatively small. But I can tell you there's actually not a lot of quantity left of these cards, and it's a really popular card. There's a lot of really good specs, in my opinion, to be looking out for. From especially Oath of the Gatewatch has a lot of them, and Modern. I think the Oath of the Gatewatch is going to be a set that we look back on and just see how much value was in that, just as how impactful it is on the Commander format as well as Modern. An entire deck is based around it in Modern. So if you're a Rudy, if you're an Alpha Investments and you're looking for if you like the sealed product, Oath of the Gatewatch is your buy hands down to sit on for years. So again, we'll be discussing that more in detail. I'll try to have a nice laid out video rather than this kind of off the wall kind of rambly type video. And July, I'm going to try to put out more market content as well. I'm going to call this the market month. And I'm going to try to do like at least 2 to 3 videos a day on my particular interests right now in the finance topic on Magic the Gathering. So anyway, last thing I was going to talk about, one of the reasons why I think this is true with the casual demand is it really goes under the radar. I still don't think there's nearly as many people in the casual finance sphere as there are in the competitive finance sphere, because it just seems to be that most financiers, whatever you want to call it, people that like this sort of topic are also competitive players. A lot of them are legacy players, because we usually how you get into finance, like I talk about my story, the whole reason that I would even attribute why I am into Magic the Gathering finance is World of Warcraft. When I went to buy my first epic mount and was like, my God, 5,000 gold for that? How the hell am I ever going to afford that in World of Warcraft? And it really led me to look at the auction house and tips and tricks for the auction house and learn trends. And it's where I became a guru on that. And it all was because if that would have been an easy thing to get, that epic mount on World of Warcraft, I probably would have never even delved into like simulated markets, or in this case, it's just an actual like real world market with real supply and real demand when it comes to gaming. Without that, and I think it's the same thing with like legacy and modern players. When you're like, oh my God, $600, how the hell am I ever going to afford that? I had these cards once upon a time, and I lost them or traded them away. I remember when I had stacks of Lion's Eye diamonds, for example. So, and then it starts getting you like, oh well, now I'm going to actually look at what to hold on to, and then the rest is history. So I think that that's the reason why there's a lot of people in, especially legacy players, in the finance sort of sphere. Whereas the casual cards, which they don't play with, they're not actively playing other casual players or in commander groups. Many competitive players I know really turn their nose up towards the casual crowd. Like it's the second class. It's that's not even Magic to them. And a card especially like that Dragon Tempest just goes under the radar forever until all of a sudden they look at it and like, why the hell is this? It's approaching a $2 card. Why the hell is this bulk rare? This 60-cent rare. Why is it tripled since its rotation? So anyway, this is a conversation, or this type of focus is something that I'm going to try to force myself to focus on more and more and more as time goes on, because I think this is where the gold mine lies, is the EDHRec top 100 cards. You can actually reduce it down to specific colors and things like that. And I'll show you some other ways in the future looking at Commander. EDHRec's just full of it, though. You can look at top commanders and see the trends of the week. Like Atraxa is still seeing a lot of trend. And you just look, okay, well, people are 124 new decks per week are being put on EDHRec using Atraxa. And the number one card they're using is this Deep Glow Skate. Well, the Deep Glow Skate, that means, is going to have what? I mean, yes, of course, some people do have these cards, but it's going to 100 new decks per week. It must have a price increase at that rate. So anyway, that's just now that I show you that, and I'm kind of embarrassed this hasn't gone up in value and flatlined off. But let's just look at one that wasn't reprinted recently. There's a good one. Let's look at, that's another good spec, by the way, Cyclonic Rift. That card is gonna probably, they keep reprinting it, but it just keeps going up in value. Wow, all these cards have been reprinted. Hardened Scale is still like that card. Let's see here. Jeez. Let's take a look at Icarats. Let's see how this has gone up recently. Yep, okay. Perfect example. This is all Atraxa. This is the weekly Atraxa grind that's stripping this of its supply. And that's a great way to get ahead of things. And a lot of times you don't have to worry about these weird-ass buyouts and things like that. Like this is under the radar. This is where you want to be. Give up on the competitive end of the spectrum. Just for last bit of evidence here. Look at Marta Vehicles. This deck has been in the number 2 or number 1 slot forever. Look at how low this, wrong card, how low this card is. And tell me if this is a format you want to invest in. Number 1 deck over time, 4 of in the number 1 deck, 70 cents, going down since it was released. Continually gone down. Really, the most powerful card in the deck, I would say, would be the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Same thing. It got its printing, got its time in the sun, spiked up, gone down. This didn't go from a deck that didn't see any more play anymore. This has always been there, and boom, just crashed in value. Avoid standard finance. It is a really, there's only one time to even be looking at standard finance that is in and around Pro Tours, and especially the Pro Tour after a rotation. That is your time to invest right before, right after, and it's very risky. You're making gambles on which card. You're really glued to the computer screen for those particular days as you're watching day 1 and day 2, the decks that are doing well. And then just, you still try to gamble and hope that the number 1 deck ends up being the card you gambled on. So I personally am sinking a lot more money. Years flow. The older I get, the easier it is for me to say, but years now go by quicker and quicker and quicker. And you think, oh, 3 to 4 years, that's so far away. I don't want to sink money into something that's going to take that long. And all of a sudden, 3 to 4 years comes by and like, God damn it, I wish I would have sunk a ton of money into Dictate of Erebos. So there you go. It's rather these little short-term spikes, these short-term gambles. I think this is the new era of finance for Magic the Gathering. One other topic I wanted to talk about really quickly too. Let's just go back over into, there's another site where I'm going to try to say that this is a very healthy format, Magic Finance. And let me pick out and this is the biggest telling of whether or not the format or just Magic in general is in a good spot. And during some of the bust years, like 2016 especially, this all-time high versus all-time low list, the all-time low list had a lot of cards on there, and the all-time high was quite small. And it's kind of the opposite. You'd say that they're pretty 50-50 at the moment. However, if you look at all of these cards that are on the all-time low, they're all judge promos, pre-release cards, and things like that. There are very few cards. Like, I like to scour, if this is called mtgstocks.com, I like to scour for deals. Like, wow, why the hell is this card the lowest it's ever been? Like Gideon, for example. Oh, is it a good time to get into Gideon? It's 16 bucks, it's the lowest it's ever been. And then you make it a informed decision on if that's where you want to be. However, in the past, you'd see a lot of cards on their all-time low list that had no business being there, just to show that it was an unhealthy market. And now you can see that this is a pretty healthy market. It's a lot of cards, recent cards, like from Modern Masters 2015, Commander 2014, all of these cards like going up in value. And to me, it seems like we're gonna have a pretty good year for the remainder of 2017. And that's despite all of the insane amount of reprints and the stagnation of the standard format and a lot of things that people haven't been happy with, and we still seem to be in a pretty healthy market. So that's good news for Magic. Yeah, well, I guess it's a breath of fresh air from my usual pessimistic attitude. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've been all over the place, but tomorrow will be the real Market Monday with my picks, and I highly suggest you tune in because there's some goodies in this. They are very duh cards, and it's just this simple proven method. If you look back at the sets that were overprinted, even like Theros and Khans-Tarkir Kirblock, they're going up in value, which, yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.